how do we take all the wonderful information Melissa told us about the statistics of how exercise helps our clients and translate that into helping them be motivated to actually exercise? Okay. So how do we bridge that gap? So I thought I'd start off with a case study of one of my patients who was a 40-year-old client, actually quite thin, very concerned about her health and eating properly. She came to me because she was so surprised that she was diagnosed with gestational diabetes at 25 weeks. And so we worked out a meal plan for her, and her blood glucose values normalized very quickly. She was testing her values 4 or 5 times a day and was extremely motivated with the diet and glucose monitoring, but not with exercise. So how did we bridge the gaps with that? As she got closer to term, her blood glucose values just exponentially started to go up, and then when they went above 125, she remembered me telling her how powerful exercise is in dropping her levels. So after each meal, she got on her home treadmill for about 10 minutes and saw that it really helped her values normalize very quickly. And then the motivation started to increase. But there was one more thing that we worked on, and that is motivational interviewing, which is a client-centered guiding method of communication to help strengthen and motivate internal change and exploring ambivalence, because when you think about it, we're all ambivalent about something related to lifestyle, and exercise is a big thing many of our clients are ambivalent about. You think about it, you're pregnant, you have to eat properly, check your blood sugars, and then exercise is just one more thing to do. So how do we find the motivation that's within? How do we do that? And that's where motivational interviewing comes in. And it's based on the assumption that people are naturally inclined to strive towards the best person they can be. So how do we build the discrepancy and at the same time affirm the value as a whole person? Well, part of us, we already know MI. We're just relearning what we already know. Think about conversations with a friend. You don't judge your friend. You don't, or most of the time we try not to tell our friends what to do, but we try to understand them and reflect how they're feeling. And that's how people want to be. They really just want to be understood. And many times when they feel understood, it actually can spur them towards change. So when you're sitting down with a client, how do you conduct yourself? You consider it a privilege to hear the other person's story. Before I'm seeing a patient, I try to center myself and think, how can I really help this person? How can I make this one of the most important conversations of my life and their lives? How can I help them feel understood, want to talk more, be respected, and feel safe in my office and empowered to go make changes once they leave my office? So these are the 4 fundamental processes we think about in MI. We have to actually engage the client and get them interested in what we're talking about. Then we focus on the topic, so in this case with exercise, and then evoke the change, and then we get to planning. Whereas as healthcare providers, a lot of times we just immediately go to the planning. How do we get them to exercise? What are they going to do? But there's sometimes many different steps we have to go through before we actually get to the planning part. I thought this was a nice quote, that if you talk to a man in a language he understands, that language goes to his head, but if you talk to him in his own language, that goes to his heart. So these are the 4 qualities of positive engagement. How can we partner with our clients versus being the expert or the diet expert, and affirm and empathize for where they're at and show compassion? Imagine yourself as a client, and how do we draw up the client's own insight? So when someone comes in, asking them, what concerns you today? What would you like to know or understand? What are 3 changes you might be interested in making? What is your client's agenda? Do they actually understand what's going on in their body and how exercise can actually make a change? One thing I like to do with my GDM clients is draw out a picture of insulin resistance, and then with exercise, draw how exercise is the key that helps insulin become more sensitive so their food can get in the cell. And I think a lot of times that schematic can really open the door for talking about motivation and ways they can actually add exercise to their life. So asking for permission, it's such a basic thing, but a lot of times we don't think about it. How much do you know about diabetes? Is it okay if I share with you what's going on in your body and how we can help? Because asking for permission is thought to create a shift in the brain towards openness and new information, because everybody wants to be asked rather than told what to do. So here's the process again. What we want to be doing is trying to dance with our clients rather than struggling with them. So the readiness rulers are a nice way to open the conversation and assess how important exercise is for your client or how confident they are, because those are two things that are really important for change to occur. So on a scale of 0 to 10, how important is exercise to you, or how motivated are you to exercise? So I'll usually say, well, give me a 0 if you're not motivated at all, or give me a 10 if you're the most motivated. And many times you'll get, I am only motivated at a 3 or a 4, which they may not think is very significant. So what you would say is, okay, well, what makes you give me a 3 versus a 0? Because what I'm doing is I want the client to give me the reasons why they want to exercise or why it's important to exercise. And I'm pulling for something called change talk. So when they tell me those reasons, then I'm going to reflect that back to them so they can hear the importance of exercise and their reasons for exercise. Because research shows when someone is telling you the reasons why exercise is important, them saying it in their own voice reinforces to their brain why it's important. If they're telling you or giving you excuses about all the reasons why they can't exercise, their brain hears that and it reinforces why they're not going to exercise. So it's really, really important that you don't tell your clients what to do or to get into that power struggle with them, but just try to stay out of the power struggle and make them the ones that are arguing for change. So these are a couple different tools you can use with motivational interviewing. You can give a simple reflection. Someone says, well, when I exercise, it does make me feel better, and I notice my blood sugars are much lower when I do exercise. You can repeat that to them or rephrase. Say, well, so it seems like when you exercise, you don't need to take as much insulin, or you feel better.